Hey, welcome to Performance Anxiety, part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsor, AKG, for sending us the Podcaster Essentials Kit. The kit comes with a Lyra mic and an amazing set of headphones. So if you've ever thought about starting your own podcast, this is the best way to do it. Our guest today is John San Juan. He's the guitarist for Hushdrops. The band was preparing their third album when they suffered the unexpected passing of their drummer, Joe Camarillo. John talks about how he spent the next few months drinking until one day he decided the best tribute to Joe would be to finish the album. And it's a really great story of how they were able to use drum tracks by Joe to actually finish the album. But we actually started off talking about his childhood obsession with music and how a punishment from his parents would actually be for him to not be allowed to sing his own songs. He was playing heavy metal covers when he realized he wanted to actually play like Neil Young, and that's how Hushdrops found their sound. But their name is a completely different story. So follow the band at Hushdrops on social media, buy the new album The Static wherever you get new music, give us a follow at Performance ANX on social media, and you can help support the show at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. Merchandise is available at performanceanx.threadless.com. And since I was caught in traffic when we recorded this, we now join the conversation with John San Juan of Hushdrops, already in progress on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Oh, well, fair enough. I'll make haste here. Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. This is John San Juan from the Hushdrops, and you are listening to Performance Anxiety with Mark Shea.
What an evening.
You're home safe. That's,
Yeah.
going to start with the positives, yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This is going to be a lot of fun, I hope. It will be for me anyway.
Oh, yeah, I've got the bedroom to myself. This is all good, yeah.
All right. So I have been listening to the stuff you sent over, and oh my gosh, man, I'm loving it.
Oh, hey, all right.
Holy
That's fantastic.
It's so cool. It's like, I love the way you described it as, what was it, The Who doing bread.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm thinking more Crazy Horse doing bread. But,
well, that's a compliment of the highest order, man. Yeah, I'm here for Crazy Horse. Yeah,
I love anything Neil is great, but Crazy Horse is particularly.
Yeah, Neil is a huge hero of mine, and there was actually a song on the record that is coming out in November. That. It was so, just had that kind of on the verge of falling apart quality that I know that I had, when I was talking to just sending songs to the label in advance of putting the deal together, I had used Crazy Horse as a signifier. But that's, anything Neil, and certainly Neil with Crazy Horse.
Well, if you don't mind foul language and sophomoric humor, there's a podcast you need to check out.
Oh, these are my keywords. Yeah,
it's on the same network that I'm on. It's called Long May You Young, and it is hilarious. And what they do is they go through every Neil Young album chronologically, and it's hilarious. They're brutally honest about their opinions on it. So.
Oh yeah, I'm here for this.
All right, so when you get to like the '80s Neil with Landing on Water and all, ooh.
Yeah. Oh, I mean that's that's a difficult time to be a Neil fan for sure.
It is. What got you into music? Were you into it as a kid? Were you taking music lessons? Was there a lot playing in the house?
Well, I think that period where I was a little kid, the early 70s, the early to mid 70s, it was just like, generally a kid my age, your parents were hippies. They had records, had lots of records. Music was always playing. So, I had a favorable reaction to it. And I remember being kindergarten age and getting up hours before anyone else in the house on weekends and putting on the headphones. And I specifically remember pulling out things that looked interesting, like the Sgt. Pepper album looked interesting, Revolver looked interesting.
Yeah.
And like being perfectly content to have hours of headphone time. So yeah, it's like a moth to a flame kind of thing. And so that was a whole, grade school was just going through just going through all of this. I mean, what then was already kind of outdated music, but in its way was so evergreen because I think that the nostalgia for it was very instant among, people who had lived through it the first time. And I don't know if you remember, the ambience at that time was all had to do with like, Beatles reunions and this hopeful Lorne Michaels with the novelty-sized check and all of that. But it was, so they were a great introduction because they had such a varied and extensive catalog that, so birthdays and Christmas, and you just get these records out of sequence, and you couldn't even really put the puzzle together. It's just like, well, I don't know what this next record's going to sound like that I get by them. This one, they've got animal masks on the cover, and and Revolution Number 9, and so from there into just branching out into things like The Who and one of the Doors, Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, and I think so I just was a really avid enjoyer of music and drew pictures of it. And one of the things I did when I was probably 5 or 6 is I remembered that I had gotten punished for some infraction, and the punishment was that I couldn't go around making up songs. I kid you not.
Oh my gosh.
And and I considered this a real violation of my civil rights. So I guess all of the evidence was there that so by the time it was my 11th birthday, I got a guitar from my parents and just started playing, and with no real end game in mind, not like, I'm going to start a band or I'm going to do this or do that. It was a real sort of just kind of blindly fumbling towards something.
Okay.
But fumbling in that direction for sure. And my big fantasy, I remember walking to school in 5th grade, and this was the extent of my ambition, was something about playing Day Tripper in the school auditorium. Like that's gonna, that's when I will have made it big,
That's gonna be your career highlight.
Right. Yeah. To me, that was, I guess because I couldn't picture Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're 11,
Yeah, right. And that's so yeah, and then so that just extended out into, obviously, to get into middle school and junior high and high school. You're getting into all these more contemporary things, and eventually, making some efforts to play with people, but not really realizing that whatever abilities I had or interest I had was, you could translate this into a creative life, or, because I know people. Yeah, I know people who, have very different origin stories where, I picked up a guitar and, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go with it. And, this was a real sleeper.
At what point did you think that, well, maybe this is something that I could do as a career? I could make a living in music.
Well, I came up to Chicago in what would have been my senior year. I had dropped out and came up here and was starting college, pending a GED, and somehow that change of location, suddenly I was in through friends of friends with people that were in bands, and next thing I knew, I was in someone's band, and I liked it. I liked the collaborative process. I liked performing on stage, and I think a lot of performers will tell you that once you get a taste of it, you're hooked.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
So I was up here in my first couple of years of college playing in a band with these two brothers, and I was just playing guitar, and I hadn't given a single thought to the actual, you could sit down and write a song someday. It wasn't even that it seemed remote. It just didn't even cross my mind. It was just like, well, no, I pick up the guitar and I play it, and here we are. Thank you very much, everybody. But at some point, that band, when that band split up, I think, and I wasn't even 20 yet, there was this sense of, well, I got to do something. And from there came those first sort of stabs at songwriting. And somehow hearing the Buzzcocks, who I bought singles going steady because it looked like something that I might enjoy, and I think it was discounted. And
that's always a bonus.
Just all those, just hearing all of those great Pete Shelley songs, something in it woke me up oh, there's the song is what you're responding to here. And, I could kind of see what was in it to some extent, or what I believed was in it and what was making it tick.
Okay.
And so, then there's the writing.
You've worked with a lot of people in your own bands and with other bands like Material Issue, Liam Hayes, Josh Caterer, like we were talking about before, the Webb Brothers. Were you working with those bands as a player or producing or engineering?
Always as a player.
Okay.
And that was not, and that was not until a little bit later, because I had started the Hushdrops, which was, a fairly modest undertaking in its initial incarnation. And then it sort of whittled away to me meeting a guy named Joe Camarillo, who we started playing together. And it's the sort of response that we got from people changed, and just my enjoyment of it. It just the character of the music developed in a way that was really positive.
Yeah.
And almost like that, to some extent, may have been, some of those gigs like the Webb Brothers and Material Issue and things that were, many of them forged in friendship. I think that the Hushdrops may have sort of been the demo reel for that, in terms of okay, well, this guy looks like he can do what we want musically.
Okay, so the Hushdrops came before all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to.
It may have enabled it. Yeah.
How did you guys come up with the name Hushdrops?
Oh God, and that I remember was making a very lengthy list of potential band names, and if you can believe it, every one of which was worse than Hushdrops. I hate to talk down my own brand here, but that was a name that was chosen by default. All right, well, we can all live with this name. It was a real, we can live with it. I can live with it. But, obviously, as you go on in your life under a brand name, it takes on its own meaning and connotations.
Yeah. How did you meet Joe in the first place? And then, because the first album was basically just you and Joe, right? I think you started to talk about that a little bit, but.
Oh yeah. So we had a whole bunch of mutual friends without ever meeting each other. I'd gone to see a friend's band play, and Joe's band was the other band on the bill, and he was up on stage singing and holding a baseball bat. Which I think, he was a big guy, and I think that was sort of, his kind of soft-hearted lampooning of like the sort of macho side of hardcore and punk rock. So yeah, it was just somebody did the initial like, oh well, you should meet my friend Joe. You guys should play together, and I think said it to both of us, and then that became like, and then a lot of other people joined in. Once the sort of like, so Joe, right? What's he like? Oh yeah, you guys should play together. And I think both of us heard it from enough people that, okay, we'll at least talk on the phone. And and the first time we talked on the phone, it was like just having all of the same humor references and just all of this stuff about the Ruddles and Cheech and Chong and all of these things. At the time, when liking the Beach Boys was kind of a niche thing, at probably their most unfashionable point, if you met someone who was like, I don't know, I'm down with Brian, that was a big deal.
Yeah. So the first album, I really enjoyed it. It had a whole lot of different sounds to it, a lot of different. It had a bit of rawness. I mean, you've got the song "Summer People," which I saw that the Webb Brothers did that as well.
Winter's over again, summer people. Some are even, but then some are evil. Keep me moving, take me somewhere, get together, now or never.
Did you guys do that first, or did the Webb Brothers do that first?
We recorded it first. We recorded and released it first, and then they did a version of it. Yeah. Okay,
but you've got strings on the album. Like I like Air Chocolate so much. That's
Joe. Yeah.
And then you got these awesome like lounge sounds with Dr. V and Song for a Rained Out Ball Game, which is one of my favorites on that album. I mean, it's got this like,
oh, thanks, man.
It's almost got this like Space Needle sound, but with a little more gravel in the voice and some sound effects.
Slow drivers, somebody's keeping us apart, and no one's binding my destiny to yours. I'm stuck on leaving the house before it falls. We'll come back, and buy all the things we.
And that goes right into like sludge pop with Miami rap. I mean, it's just so many sounds on that album. Did you guys know what you wanted to do when you were making the album?
I had an idea that whatever we did, because we'd been playing together for a while at that point before we okay, well, look, we're making and putting out an album here. So I had the backlog of material, I had new songs, and I had an idea just based on the White Album, I think, where you didn't know what was coming next. And I was like, well, that's the goal. That's a goal we can have, so that there isn't necessarily, okay, well, we got the guitar sound for the album and here they are. Which can be a perfectly valid way to live. and there's a lot of things I like that. But yeah, I thought there was I just felt like, yeah, well, we'll make a bigger splash, bigger impression with a kind of doing a rangy sort of record.
Well, it's really cool because you also have these small, I don't even want to say vignettes because they're actual songs, like, but they're the smaller instrumental, shorter, I guess, better word, instrumentals like Cold Harbor Lane. I mean, it's just, they're really cool, like little interstitial bits in between some of the other songs. You know, I mean, Cold Harbor Lane kind of echoes a little bit of Dr. V. And then you've got some other singing. Who's the female singer?
There's a few on that first record. My friend Carolyn Engelman, who also did the string arrangements.
Oh.
So she's one of the female voices, and let's see, Elizabeth Elmore is another, and a friend of ours, Laura Catter. So there were three female voices, and I had a lot of things that I liked at the time, like Stereo Lab and Broadcast and the Cardigans.
Broadcast.
My own way of hearing music was, well, there's going to be a woman singing at some point, and since I'm not capable of producing that sound,
But the band was just you and Joe at that point, technically. I mean, now, were you playing just as a duo, or did you have bass players come in when you were playing live?
Well, we always had some version of the band. We went through so many, honestly, during probably what were our most marketable youthful years, we went through one bass player. I mean, it's a Spinal Tap situation.
Wow.
There's one bass player after another, and it was just never the band. But at that point, my feeling about making a record was like, well, I can play bass, and between the two of us, we can play whatever it takes to make a record.
Yeah.
So yeah, that particular, I know, because I kind of always felt like, even though it was from the CD era, what we would call side 2 of that album always seemed sort of like the easy listening side or the adult contemporary side.
Yeah. So then there was a 10-year gap between Volume 1, the first album, and then the second album, Tomorrow.
Right.
What were you guys still playing? I mean, were you doing this full time, or was that when you started working with Material Issue and the other bands?
Well, I did the Material Issue tour in '94, so sort of well in advance of that. But during that time, I think both Joe and I, during the time between the two albums specifically, Hushdrops, well, actually our friend Jim Shapiro joined then, and our bass player to this very day.
Yeah. So
that was when we sort of found the band. And as for why we weren't more actively recording and putting out records then, that's hard to reconstruct that. But
yeah, it's a while ago now.
Yeah, no, right. Everything is. But certainly both Joe and I at that time, were taking up, doing other things on the side as well. And he with the Waco Brothers and, a number of things. And, playing with Liam Hayes and people like that.
The second album, it has a different sound to it. It's a lot more raw. And it's, okay, so you got a couple things going here. It's the sounds, I mean, it still sounds like the Hushdrops, but it's a little more raw. It's the sophomore album. It's a double album, and it was recorded in mono. I think you guys were just trying to shoot yourselves in the foot.
Oh, I mean, we were certainly our own paymasters for sure. But I know that, so we had done Volume 1 and, we're very proud of it. And anyways, it's sort of gone on our, just existing as a live band for many years after. And Joe, one night, we're out drinking, and he says, I don't know what segued into this, but he sort of said, I think the next album, I think we should try to capture our live sound. And I couldn't say no to that because I thought we had something pretty special on stage, and that's a more attractive option than like, I don't know, let's go make volume 2, man.
Yeah. So it's really an incredible sound. I mean, you've got this like wild mix of beautiful harmonies, but like the searing guitars. Like Take Your Places, for example, it's one of my favorite on that album.
Oh.
It's got all of that, and it's just amazing. It's like Beach. I'm not going to say Bread. I'm going to go Beach Boys harmonies meet Crazy Horse guitar. It's just wild. And it's a double album of a lot of that. It's incredible.
Oh God. Yeah, I guess that was, and again, just being the types of players we were, and I guess also like having a real love of these sort of softer sounds, a lot of 70s AM Gold and
yeah,
just right, Beach Boys, things like that. Sort of what came out of it was like a heavy band playing, I guess, whatever, major seventh chords and, big Rundgren harmonies.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's right. I mean, and then you've also got the shorter little things like The Earth is Flat, these great instrumental pieces that go on as well. And I love the instrumentals that you guys do. They're so expressive. Like I said, it's like a concentration of whatever band you're I'm not saying this the way I want it to come out. It's like if you're distilling Crazy Horse, or I don't want to say Bread because that's not the case. Maybe The Who. You're fitting a lot of great stuff into these shorter little instrumentals, and I think it's really it's an incredible talent because a lot of people can't do that in a 15-minute jam. So it's a really great stuff.
Oh, that's a compliment of the highest order. I think one of the things is that by the time we started recording Tomorrow, we were all in our 40s, and your goals are different. I think there's a sense in your early 20s that oh God, we could get on MTV and there are different goals, and there's a certain point we realize like, well, whatever it is that's driving us to make music at this point is just live. There's no commercial concerns in there. Right. If you've sort of gracefully accepted your cult status, it can be very freeing artistically.
And Jim just fits right in. Jim Shapiro from Veruca Salt.
Yeah. He was and is periodically their drummer. Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. I want to take a minute and talk about our sponsor, Tiesta Tea. Tiesta is a tea company on a mission to create loose-leaf tea beverages with premium ingredients that taste good and do good. Each tea is blended for one of 5 categories, so you can energize, slenderize, boost antioxidants, boost immunity, and relax. My current favorite is Blueberry Wild Chow. When I was growing up, my dad always told me, once you go loose, you never go bagged. And you know what? He was right. Go to tiestatea.com and use the promo code Anxiety15 at checkout to get 15% off your order. You think you know tea? You haven't tried Tiesta tea. The sound doesn't sound like it changed all that much. He just kind of fit right in. So it sounds like it was a natural progression. Does he do? It was and is the songwriting mainly on one person, or is it collaborative?
The songwriting, and both of them have written songs. Both of them are quite capable. But I think, not to speak for them, but I think as I see it, their idea in this band was, well, okay, so John's writing the songs, and I think Jim contributed one song to the double album, and as did Joe, and Joe's got a couple things on the first one, but I think generally their feeling was, no, he'll write them, we'll play them.
Okay.
And, it worked for me. I was happy to, and I don't know how that works in a band, I've talked to Josh Caterer about this, and his sort of telling of it was like, well, I just kept writing songs. And so it's just a matter of, it's like, I don't know, do you have children?
Yeah, I have 3 teenagers.
Oh man, you're a hero, man.
16, 17, and 18.
Wow. Oh yeah, I got 12 and 16 over here, 2 boys.
Oh boy.
And one of the things is that, if a kid doesn't, if you are taking care of the laundry or the dishes or whatever, a kid doesn't think like, oh no, man, I gotta step it up. Like typically a kid will think, this is great, the system works.
This is how it is. This is what mom and dad do.
Yeah. So for me to consistently bring in songs, I think that may have been a thing like, well, all right, so no need to. All right, so he's on it. You know, it's like someone doing all the driving or something. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're bringing in a lot of stuff. It's good stuff. It's quality songwriting. So, it's why rock the boat?
No, and, and it meant a lot to me for them to, sort of tacitly vote with their feet like that, for the material. And that the band, so, it's one thing to sit on the edge of a bed with a guitar and, chase a melody and have written a song. But, the thing that makes it magic is a band that turns it into, just through their force of musical personality, turns it into something far beyond what you could have ever envisioned. And that happened a lot. I feel like from any era, most of our songs, that guy could play it for you on a guitar and, like, oh, that's a cool song. I know that song. But what the band does and what the two of them specifically consistently did was just enlarge it in a way that,
So anybody else playing those songs, it wouldn't sound like Hushdrops.
Right, yeah.
So then after Tomorrow, you guys, I guess, took a little break and you put out a solo album.
I did, yeah. We did a bit of touring after Tomorrow. And again, very perverse why we waited until we were all in our 40s to go to start touring. I can't really answer that. But there we were. And, I think there were just a lot of, like in a family or something, there were a lot of conflicts that, festered in the band and enough baggage that a year after the record come out and we'd done the touring and I was at a point where I had a bunch of new songs and, it's whatever. There were a lot of things that made me think we're just not functioning right. And we're not really looking out for each other's best interests. We're not, we're not working in harmony. So I went off and made a solo record.
And from what I've heard of it, I haven't been able to hear the whole thing, but it sounds a little softer. it doesn't sound like it's like Crazy Horse going nuts.
And I think that's the band, that is the difference between, because I and I had this idea like, well, now that I'm, now that I've emancipated myself, I can go in the studio with a drummer and play all the other instruments and be the boss. And you're never really the boss, I guess, is another thing that I learned. I'm barely my own boss at the best of times.
Yeah.
Lacking that sort of the personality of the band and the chemistry of the band, it really does come off as a far gentler thing and with a completely different energy.
Nobody set you free. Nobody counts for three. You gave no guarantee you would come back to me. I never saw what was under my nose, and you never...
I ultimately, I wish a lot of those songs, it's not a regret that will kill me, but I feel like I wish that the Hushdrops had recorded those songs.
Yeah.
And so, that was a few years of just, being out there by myself. And we had gotten together to do a Halloween show. I had gotten booked for a Halloween show, and the people that were playing with me were unable to do it. And the three of us in Hushdrops, we'd all sort of started talking again, and things were really friendly, and just had this idea like, how about if we tell the people at the club that we're going to be, I don't know, Eddie Money or something, and we show up and play the album Bandwagon-esque by Teenage Fan Club, unbilled and unadvertised, and also people not even knowing that Hushdrops are going to perform together. Yeah. So it was one of those things. It's so stealth that nobody knew about it. But that's kind of perfect in a way.
I love it. That is awesome. How soon after that did you guys get back to wanting to do an album?
That was the crucial first move for sure. I feel like within a year of that, we were playing together again regularly, and that had started with Joe and I going in to record, just the two of us, before I really, because there was a certain, there's something about getting the band back together that's like, does everybody really want to do this? What pitfalls do you believe you can avoid a second time around?
Right.
It's like a married couple, remarrying or something.
Yeah.
So, it probably took longer than it should have. But just, middle-aged caution all around, I guess. And I remembered when we did the Teenage Fan Club thing, that first rehearsal, I think we had 3 rehearsals for it. We're just, all right, everybody, we all know the album. And the first downbeat where we were all in, I just remember like all of us looking at each other like, oh my God, like, wow, do you feel that? Like, that's a thing, huh?
You guys didn't happen to record that, did you? The show where you did the whole album?
No.
Man, that would have been awesome.
So much of our life, our musical life, is ephemeral, But yeah, I will tell you, the 20 people who were there were very happy. So it was another thing that sort of was a big step to us putting the rings back on, I guess, was that there was a gig where I had been asked to play, and again, sort of, the thing that I was doing with some other friends of mine was petering out. And to be honest, I probably should have maybe, I kind of let it peter out rather than sort of saying, well, hey, everybody, look, let's, nice working with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's easier said than done, So we it was again another thing where, and Joe was like, I think Jim and I would should play with you for this thing. I don't know if he had discussed it with Jim, but, I said, yeah,
He's
that'd be
volunteering,
great.
Jim.
Yeah, I mean,
He's voluntold.
I think these may be the people we are ultimately. So again, just, having that experience of, playing together and like, okay, well, look, seriously, I don't really care what it costs us on some personal level. Like, this is the thing.
Yeah.
And what rationale do we have for not doing the thing?
Exactly.
And fortunately, I had a lot of, I had just written a bunch of new songs, and being back together had sort of fired me up. Cause like, well, I'm writing for my band. I know this is another thing that, Josh Caterer has talked about with Smoking Popes, that just having that sound behind you like makes you want to write songs.
Yeah.
So we were gigging again, and it's like, well, we've got all these songs, we better record them. And so we did the last full band session that we did. I think we went into, there's a place here called Electrical Audio, and we went into Studio B there, the cheaper room, and that's why I chose it, and why it has become my room of choice, perhaps in perpetuity. But whatever, it's
working for you.
It's working, yeah. No, the workflow is incredible, so we cut. It was just like, okay, so these are the 10 songs that we're going to record, and to have gone in and spent a day, and getting 10 songs in one day just felt like, oh, this seems unusually productive for anyone by anyone's standards. I as a student of Neil Young, I don't even know if he did 10 songs in a day,
Yeah, that's true.
And if anyone was going to, it's going to be him.
How far along? I know, unfortunately, Joe passed away.
Right.
How far along in the process were you guys when that happened?
Well, we had a lot of songs recorded by the end of 2019, and we were rehearsing another batch of songs that we were going to go in and record in the spring of 2020, and that was a hard spring for everybody.
Yeah.
And
I hear that a lot. We were going to do this in the spring of 2020.
Yeah. Oh God, you couldn't make it up.
No. Jeez.
So just whatever. Suddenly we're all in our homes for a year, and just talking via Messenger, and still talking about the record and what we're going to do with it. Everyone fully expecting that we'll get back on it when we get back on it. And that didn't happen. And Joe passed away in January. And
I'm so sorry.
Well, thanks, man. That was it was like, it was freezing cold up here. So it was a weird kind of, if you wanted to be sad, having somebody pass away in the middle of a pandemic when it's 0 outside, there's an ambience there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, I just kind of got drunk every night for a couple months, and didn't do too much, and at some point realized, this music is pretty cool, and how better to tell the world, like, check out my dude, check out our friend, than to finish this record and release it into the world.
Yeah.
And so the trouble was, there were a couple of, load-bearing tracks are, what I thought songs that were easily the equal of any other song, and maybe even some of our strongest, that we had not gotten around to recording, the three of us. And so I'm thinking about this, and there's a couple of them that I had pretty good demos of. And then I had remembered we had done this show right when we got back together. We did a show. I mean, I think this will set the scene. We did a show in a brewery. And so, we show up at whatever time you show up, load in, and okay, so, just put a marker on your wrist. You can just keep going up and drink beer all night. It's on us.
Nice.
And, so we got loose.
Yeah.
We got very loose and, played this show. And it was a great show, for all of its blemishes, for all of its man-made blemishes. It had so much spirit. And then the next day I find out, oh, hey, so, this guy recorded your show. And,
wow.
And at the time it was like, well, that's cool. That's great. And we didn't know we were being recorded, which is a nice thing. This sort of a Watergate kind of ambience. And so, as my, a few months after Joe died, as my head's starting to clear, I'm like, I gotta find out if the guy still has his recordings. And so I reached out to the guy who recorded it. His name's Mike, and just mentioned, is there any chance, you probably wouldn't still have this? And yeah, I got it. And
Wow.
so I went through, and there were, the two of those tracks are on our next album, The Static. And so you've got, obviously, Jim and I had the luxury of sweetening up our contributions to the extent that they required it. But yeah, the basic skeleton of it is, and certainly Joe's parts are all brewery.
Yeah.
So it's, we got a couple songs that were recorded in a brewery when we would have probably not agreed to being recorded.
Right.
But thankful that we were.
That's amazing. A couple questions about that. So first of all, the album's called The Static. There's a song called The Static.
All your friends and neighbors from your old hometown.
Why did you pick that as the title?
Well, I admire the person, the Pete Townsend, the Roger Waters, the conceptual artist. I admire them. I've never had the sort of, I'm going to do a long form, I'm going to do Zen Arcade. Just never really worked that way. But I've noticed that if you write sort of an album, the bulk of an album's worth of songs during a specific period in time, generally there will be themes that keep coming up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, whatever the album XO by Elliott Smith might mean to a person.
Right.
I don't know if it's a concept album, but it has a consistent sort of thematic ambience to me. And I noticed that a lot of what was on The Static, that one of the themes that I kept seeing in it, hearing in it, was just the sort of interpersonal communication and all of the things that kind of jam the wires, and the difficulty people have understanding each other or listening to each other. And that extends to all sorts of things. Just, if you see, we're online these days, and there's just people deliberately making bad faith arguments, and the bot farms and the whole, all of it, So I just feel like we live in this, time where, that particular dilemma of, people just really discrediting each other or not wishing to listen to each other is it's at a peak, So it was just like, okay, so this, I'm seeing that this is all in a lot of the songs, and never in any sort of heavy-handed way, but it's a theme that's there. So that was how that ended up as the sort of, that's what ended up tying it together.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I love how you start off with Monday and Psychic Space.
I'm satisfied the earth will shift tomorrow, just like it did today and yesterday. The house next door seems closer than I know it used to be. They're telling me it's always been this way.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's a brewery jam.
Oh, is it? That's awesome. Yeah. I love, you've got a couple, like I've mentioned this before throughout this whole episode, but you've got these great instrumentals, the Lummox. That is so cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
And I got to know, is there a story, because most people wouldn't title an instrumental Jennifer's Grandpa.
Oh, man. I mean, I have to tell you, don't I?
Yeah. You do. Contractually.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So there are people we know, one of whom is a, single mother, divorced single mother with a child. And, oh, God, she had company one evening.
Okay.
And the kid wakes up and, said, "Who's that man? Is that Jennifer's grandpa?" and presumably referring to my wife, Jennifer, and the idea that, for some reason my wife's grandpa would A, be alive and, B, over at their place in the middle of the night. Yeah. So it was just one of those things like, wow, that's a title. Yeah. Really evocative,
Oh my gosh, I love it even more now that I know this backstory.
So had you not asked, I would have never mentioned it, but I couldn't, couldn't leave you hanging, yeah.
Well, and you've got some great people on the top too, like Nora O'Connor. I love Nora O'Connor.
She's the best.
She was awesome. I had Flat 5 on a while back.
Oh, right on.
So she was awesome. Her, Kelly, and Casey on all at the same time. So that was a blast.
Oh, those are my people, man.
Yeah. They were so awesome. So I'm so glad when I get a chance to have somebody else on who's kind of related to the podcast at this point now. So.
Oh, no, I like the familial quality here. Yeah. Right. And John Perrin, who I play with in Josh Caterer's band, he finished up a couple of my demos that are on the record, and just really, really exceptional talent. Because I just sent him like, well, here's my demo with the drums muted. And he sends me back his first take, which is just him like looking at the waveform and then jumping in when it looks like it's time. So you're just really getting this like, and he sent me these more polished, like more arranged performances. I'm like, no, I want the first take. There's a lot of, you're just taking more chances there, and it's just a little wilder.
Oh, that is so cool.
So it really lives in the spirit of, things Joe Camarillo would have played.
That is awesome. And I love how it ends with "I Had a Room." It's another one of those songs with the long jammy solo at the end. The crazy horse comes back. just
sure.
cool. I love your guitar playing. I love when you just go off and play. I love the feedback. I love the just crazy distortions. It's hitting me right in the heart. I love it.
Well, it's interesting because I really, I went through a phase in my teen years where, and all of these things that I still love, like Led Zeppelin and Ozzy and, Iron Maiden, whatever, a lot of Van Halen, all of this stuff with very accomplished playing. And I would learn all of this stuff, learn all these solos, and had developed a certain, I don't know what I thought I was going to do with all of these other people's songs, but anyways, I developed this particular skill set. And at some point when I started making my own music, I was already like, well, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And the sort of more Neil Young, is he going to make it? Kind of like might bend the note a little too much. That always seemed to be like, okay, now we're really playing music. Whenever that happened,
early Mark Farner.
Yes. Oh God, it really can go off the rails at any minute.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful unhinged thing.
Playing so loose, and that's what I love about it. You definitely sound loose, and in the best way, like in the Crazy Horse, early Grand Funk Railroad way. That's the kind of stuff that I love.
Well, and it seems like in a band, if any one of the players, at least the kind of band that Hushdrops are, that you go out, if somebody goes out on a limb, intentional or not, it's kind of like goosing the other players, and then like, okay, well, that's what we're doing now. Well, I'm crazy too, so yeah, I Had a Room is I feel like, and potentially one of the criteria for us deciding, okay, well, this is the take of the song, was that it had so much of that. Like, okay, well, we could just listen to this forever and still enjoy the the swerviness of it.
So what is the plan with the album and supporting it and getting it out to people? And do you have plans for playing in the future? And what are you thinking at this point?
Well, that's a good question. I think we should. It just seems like if you put out a record, part of the gig is going out and playing. And initially, it was something I didn't even want to think about. But we played last night. Actually, there was because we decided back in the winter, like, okay, look, everyone's gonna get vaccinated, and weather's gonna get nice. Let's do something. Let's do a celebration. Let's do something sort of positive to honor Joe, instead of freezing in the parking lot of the funeral home. And he'd played with so many people that, and there's so many musicians that would want to just get together and play and, celebrate the man. So Hushdrops did perform at that last night, and a old friend of ours, came in from Brooklyn and played drums with us. And so the thing that did, apart from, I think, giving a lot of people a necessary catharsis, was it gave us now the precedent of, okay, we can play this music and celebrate this music and enjoy it. And so I'm very open to the idea of finding a way to do that going forward. And it's a lot to think about. It's when obviously this happens a lot with bands, and I was probably a lot more cynical about it when I was younger. Like, what, say, someone like Gene Simmons' rationale might be for going back out on tour again. Yeah. Like, we've got a mummified Ace Frehley, and, but, now that this is all kind of very real, I can't necessarily imagine a scenario where, okay, guys, if I die, don't play music no more. So, yeah, I guess Jim and I will actually have to have this conversation soon. And God, the record's coming out really soon. So, yeah, I'm hoping that he's into it. And
Well, I hope so too.
so yeah, you're catching you're catching me at a real. Here's the plan, and I've told you first.
Yeah.
I perhaps I could volunteer him Joe Camarillo style.
There you go. You get voluntold.
It's a thing, isn't it?
It is. Oh yeah. Ask my kids. I get voluntold. They volunteer me everything.
Oh man, I don't know, like, but man, all the last minute stuff, like,
Yes.
okay, like we're all getting dressed and about to go out the door for our day, and oh yeah, so I need you to build me a robot for
Or give me $100.
One
or the other.
All of it, yeah.
I either have to get this project done or pay money so I don't have to do something.
Oh sure, yeah.
So we're here. You obviously don't have time to go out and do your project. Here's the money. So.
Yeah, no, getting voluntold, yeah. It's our life now, yeah.
Oh, it is. And when all three of them were in high school at the same time, but my oldest is a freshman in college right now, so it's 2, but they're all in marching band. So.
Oh, excellent.
So I had 3 times the commitments.
Oh man, band instruments are, I know. This has been a mantra from parents my whole life. Like, oh yeah, see what happens if you have to deal with band instruments.
Oh yeah, I mean, my oldest plays the trumpet. We bought that, but my my oldest is, I have 2 girls and a son in the middle. My son plays the tuba, which I am not buying because I could not afford the cheapest of tubas. And then my youngest plays the French horn, but fortunately she's now one of the drum majors, so she's not playing that right now.
Oh, God.
Can't afford that either.
Oh no, I understand that there's a lot of that. Most parents are operating on a sort of rental basis with band instruments, right?
Oh yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily sound like an easy, that's still a commitment.
It is. And well, actually, what we did, we paid for the trumpet, but my son and my youngest are using the school's instruments. We had to buy their mouthpiece. That was the only investment on that. But the trumpet was the cheapest of all the instruments, so that worked out well for us. So, because she still plays in community band, but so she gets to take her trumpet with her. But
this was the day I found out that tubas were the most expensive in the brass family.
Oh, God, yeah. It's like $15,000 or something. It's just something disgusting. Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, if that had been my instrument, my parents would not have bought me a tuba for my 11th birthday. I know that. Yeah.
No, I didn't buy my son a tuba for any of his birthdays. It would have been like from 11 to 30.
Oh no, I think you'd really have to, okay, this guy's like the, Hendrix of the tuba,
he would have to make a living.
Which he may be,
He would have to make a living on the tuba somehow.
Oh God.
I don't know how. I don't know if there's any professional tubaists. I don't know. But anyway, well, I've really enjoyed spending so much time with you, man. I've kept you for over an hour at this point. Thank you so much. I really do love the album. It is so good. I love the older stuff. I'm so glad I've got a chance to listen to almost all of it because I didn't get a chance to hear all your solo album yet, but I'm going to go and listen to it.
No, you'll get stuck in traffic again soon, and I'll be there.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an epic hang. Thanks so much for having me here today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.